Hiya folks, back out into the workshop again, and this time I've got Gary's TZR 125 engine that we started to rebuild last summer sometime, and we was working in the polytunnel and it was so hot in there, we bolted it all together, and the thing was, when we put it back together and tightened it all down, the crank wasn't free spinning as what it could be. So I said, right, we're gonna have to take this apart again now, and I'm gonna have to get a special tool to do that, which I've actually got now. I'll show you that in a second. But this is what we're dealing with, look. So we did have this crank apart, we checked all the gearbox and all that, and it was all fine. Up until now, we bolted everything back together, tapped it all in. We done the old method, which was heat the casing up and freeze the bearing. That went in fine, the first one, and the second one was a little bit more persuasive. But this is what we've ended up with, look. Normally you should be able to push that around pretty loose, look. You can, if you turn the crank, you can turn it a little bit, but it's a lot tighter than what it should be, folks, which it's not doing very easily, look, see? So, as a result of that, I want to take the casing apart again, and to do that, I need to pull this casing off rather than damage anything, because we've got all new seals in here and everything. So to do that, let's put that to the side for a minute. I've actually got this crankcase separator and installer tool, which I got from Vevor, if you can see there. I'll leave a link for this tool in the description. But basically it takes all the hard work out of splitting these apart, and it comes with various adapters and plates and all that. It comes in two parts. This part is the separator tool, and this part is the crankshaft installer tool. We'll show you that in a second. We need that in a minute. But first of all, what we do, let's show you how we set this up first. So, before I go any further, I'm going to need to undo all these screws I've put back in and tighten down. And then we'll be able to separate the crankshaft, crankcases. So, just give me a moment till I do these. All these are different lengths as well, people. That's all the external ones, and that leaves 4 internal ones in there, which again I'll go around and remove. 2, 3, another 1, 4. Right, okay, so that should be all the screws removed from the outer side. Right, okay, that's them done. So I'm just going to place this on some blocks just to get it sitting level. I've got a couple of bits of wood here. So one there, and another one that side. Just makes life a little bit easier for me. There you go. Hope you can see that all right still. Right, so comes with this. We got some adapting bolts here. They come in, I think 6mm and 8mm. You get 2 sizes. So I think our casing screws are going to be 6mm there. Let's have a look. Yep, there we go. So there's 6mm. So I'm going to use the 3 6mm ones. And what we're looking at doing is basically pushing down on this with this bolt, fixing this to the casing, and it's nice and level, and then undoing that bolt, and that should pull the casing off, because we're going to fix this to the actual casing. So first of all, let's undo this bolt, get this high up inside there in that chamber there. There we go, that's right up there now. These rotators, you can see, and you basically fix where you think you're going to get the best even spacings there. So I'm looking at that. Let me show you. So I've got a casing bolt there, and a casing bolt there. Bearing in mind all this flat face is nice and flat. So all we're going to do there is to undo our nut on the end of one of our bolts. And I'm just going to spin that nut round. That way. We might need a big washer on there maybe, I'm not sure. Is that going to be big enough? I don't know, but let's try and screw that in first. Make sure you screw these in quite a way if you can. So that's in now till it bottoms out. I'm just going to lower that. And do the same with this one here over this side. So that one can screw into there. Like that. Till that bottoms out. And that can be tightened down by hand. And this final one, just take the nut off and rotate it that way. I'll screw into that hole there, and again until that bottoms out. And there we go. and you haven't got to really go mad and tighten them down tight at all, but that's okay, hand tight. Now what should happen now is that when I tighten this bolt down onto the top of that crank, it should start to lift the casing up because I'm pushing down on the centre of the crank. And what I might need to do, I want to see this case separate, but as you know, there's a bearing there as well. So I've got a little soft blow hammer there, and I just want to ensure that when I'm doing this nut up, that it's pulling up evenly. I've got a 17mm spanner here, which I'm just slowly going to wind down and hopefully look at this line here, and hopefully that will start lifting up. I'm just tapping down on that bearing in case it's a bit tight, and this should start to pull this up if I've taken all the screws out. There we go. Yep, that's lifting. Look, see, it's a big gap there, little gap there, so I just want to encourage that to come down, and as you can see, that's already opened up there. Okay, here we go again. That clicking you can hear is the tightness of the bearing being pulled out. And you try and do this without the proper tool, you could do some damage, and it's a right pain. There we go. Bit more tapping. And don't be tempted to stick a screwdriver in there, people, because you could damage your mating surface. But I have got this little plastic door trim tool which may just help a little bit, because you ain't going to damage anything there, you see. You know when it comes up fully, because you'll hear the bearing stop groaning. There we go. That's coming up lovely. That's coming up on that bearing now, lovely. There we go. There we go. And that's it. I just felt it pop out. There we go. So we'll remove that now. So I'll just undo these. They just nip up, don't they? So just undo them. There, look, just like that. And then you should be able to just wind them out. Two. And a final one over there. There we go. Just do that. The tool should lift off. Like that, and hopefully just tap that other bearing down there, look. That should lift off. There we go, look. There we go. There we go, and that's out. Just make sure we've got no washers sticking on the back there, which we haven't. That can lay down there. Now what we're looking for is to make sure that the crank spins freely. If it does, we're okay. There, look, which it does. So it was just hanging up on something. So now all I've got to do is put it together and make sure it all goes in flat. Right, okay folks, what I've actually done, I've had a clean up of all the surfaces. I've ensured that bearing is in as far as it can be, which it is. In fact, this one comes out nice and easy. I can pull that crank in and out. And I've also gasket sealed all this round here with a translucent gasket now. So all the bearings are in place. Everything's lubricated as it should be. I'm keeping that where it should be there. And now, all gasket faces have been cleaned, as I said to you. Just have one more double check in there, make sure everything's as it should be. Right, okay, so I'm just going to try and drop this on the corresponding shafts. There we go, that's the first one in. Right, okay, there we go. Right, okay, right, that's where we are at the moment. I've found the tool to insert on that thread there. I think it's that one. That tool, that didn't fit on there either, so what I've had to do, I've had to go and get the nut for the crankshaft, which is that one there. As you can see, that one goes on. So I'm going to have to use this nut here. So I'm going to stick the nut in there. I'm going to screw that in the end of the tool. Like that. Now I can put this on there. And I'm nice and sure that's a nice flat surface that's pulling against. So I'm happy with that. Take our nut down. Right, okay, here we go. To be able to tighten this nut up now and pull this crankshaft together. Just making sure it's pulling down evenly. Feels okay. It's looking pretty square. It's got to go in them dowels as well, people, so I'm just making sure as I go tighten it up. It's pulling down virtually there. Hear that little popping noise? That's it, it's just bottomed out. There we go. So I'm going to loosen that off. And look at that. Happy days, people, look. Back together. And the crank is loose. So we just take that off. Now, as I say, I tried to do this before. And we had to abort mission because we didn't have this tool. There we go, that comes off there. Take that tool off there. I've just got to unwind my nut. These come with 6 and 8mm. This is obviously a fine threaded crankshaft end. And that's it. And there you go. Take that part of the tool off. Get that hammer out. All I've got to do now is replace them screws, but as you can see, folks, the crank is in there and it's rotating exactly as it should do. All thanks to this crankcase separator and crankshaft installer tool from Vevor. Absolutely fantastic. What a great job that's done. Well, there you go. Hope you found that interesting, folks. It would have been totally impossible. Well, it was, because we did try and get on this job in the summer. Now the job's back together. The rest of the engine can be assembled, and a presto, the bike can now get ready for its restoration. Now the engine can go back in once it's all rebuilt. So there you go. That's the Vevor crankcase splitter and installer tool. And it comes with different adapters there, a host of different bits there, and mostly 6mm and 8mm. So if you can't do it, you can just get over it by using one of the engine bolts that come off the end of the crankshaft, and that should do the job in them same adapters, and that should pull the crankshaft into the crankcases. Anyway, there you go, folks. I will leave a link in the description just literally below this video. Do check it out if you're into restoring motorbikes or building bikes or stuff like that. It works on 2 strokes, 4 strokes, quad bikes, all that sort of stuff. Anything where you've got to split the crankcase anyway. Anyway, there you go, folks. Hope you've enjoyed that video. I'll see you in the next one, and until then, bye for now.